Is Jesus an afterthought, or do you put him first? I mean, front and central in your life? Well, you've probably seen WWJD bracelets. You've heard people say it, and some of you maybe have even worn the bracelets, or maybe you still do. I mean, they're fairly good conversation starters, and the letters are so ubiquitous that even non-Christians know what they stand for. But this week, we began to consider what Jesus would undo. And this first topic on our Sunday messages was really a doozy. I mean, it helped us to take a close look at the silent and very accepted sin of indifference. I mean, before you go on a tirade or you take a long guilt trip, you need to recognize that you live in a culture which can keep you so occupied that Jesus gradually becomes an afterthought. In fact, that might be true for many of us who struggle with indifference. We didn't consciously choose to be indifferent, it just sort of happened. Conversely, the slower pace in many other cultures, usually non-Western countries, it leaves more space for a richer spiritual life. Now that's not a given, but it's harder to be distracted from God when you have longer stretches of free time and a more relaxed routine. So how are you going to break out of the indifference in your life? In a culture where you're working 40 hours a week, you're driving your kids places, you've got activities all while a pandemic is raging, and maybe you're studying for a degree and trying to do all of that at once. I mean, are you already too busy to work Christ into your life? Well, let's hope not. And to up the ante, you need to realize that this DC area is much more go-go as a region than any others in the country. I mean, if any believers in the U.S. could easily and successfully crowd Jesus out of their existence, it'd be Montgomery County believers. As Mark said in the message, we're generally living ho-hum spiritual lives, and Jesus wants to undo the spiritual indifference in your life. We often just end up with a little tiny bit of Jesus, enough to make us feel better or to cope with the day. And that's not what God wants for us. This week, I want to challenge you to look at the condition of your spiritual indifference. Mark talked about the symptoms and the prescriptions. So before you get going too far down, I want you to just think about it. Examine your heart and see if you've fallen into indifference. Then tell God to do whatever it takes to help you, to jolt you out of your apathy. So God, today, we just want to pray that you would restore our joy, the joy that we find in our salvation, and renew our first love for you. And just give us passion for you, because we're ready, God, to make you a priority and not an afterthought.